Hey, good morning, Dr. Rob Kiltz. How you doing with Dr. Fayez Faruqi?
Good morning.
Good morning to all. Sunday morning, the Fertile Fireside Chat. We do have some fire on. It might be cooking here a little bit. It's cold out there. We might open up the door to crack a little bit of air, but we'll see how things going. Love to say hi to everyone, by the way. And Trish, Amber, IVF, NVA. I apologize if I misspeak or misspell anyone's name or context. Dr. Faruqi's taking care of our Canadian offices in Montreal. We're working on Toronto. And we're going to talk about all your questions, by the way. Hey, Natalie and Tab and Amy. Hello, hello, hello. We're going to talk about, let's see, I think today is March 1st, right? And it's Endometriosis Awareness Month. And we've been talking a lot about silent endometriosis, and we're going to talk more. Dr. Faruqi is going to give his insights on endometriosis and infertility. I'll talk about my thoughts and ideas. We are going to continue with the IVF giveaway. We're going to continue to talk about Kiltz's Keto and how dietary changes are a home run for us lions and lionesses, and how important it is to change what you put in here and put in here to get you to the fertile desire that all of us want in life, all right? And so happy March. Amy, Jess Graham, hello, good morning. Dr. Verdialis from our Atlanta office is doing our Fertile Fireside Chats in Spanish, and Dr. Faruqi has kindly acknowledged that he's going to start doing our French versions, and I'm going to continue the English versions, of course. Again, clients from everywhere and anywhere. Sunday morning is my best way to do it today, but again, we're going to be continuing to add more content, more ideas. Look at the CNY Fertility website. You can download the magazines, the Family Building Guide, the Kiltz's Keto Lifestyle Magazine. It's free download. You can get a printable copy either in-house if we have them, or go to Amazon.com. They're coming very soon. But we got a lot to talk about today. And let's see. Melissa Legan, my period after treatment was a lot lighter than expected. I'm preparing for a frozen embryo transfer. Should I be worried that my period was pretty light? Any thoughts on periods after an IVF cycle, Dr. Faruqi?
First of all, it's not a normal menstrual cycle, so you don't really need to worry about this. And when we do transfer your embryo, it's in very controlled situations. So your actual period that was before the transfer is not going to really affect your success.
So the cycle after any fertility treatment, having a light or heavy period is kind of pretty normal. It's not a normal cycle anyway, but we do ultrasounds to check linings. We do some blood testing. Sometimes it's worthy of a hysteroscopy, D&C, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. All right. Instagram, hello IVF NVA, stems for retrieval 2 coming up, 39 high AMH, age 39 high AMH, but Dr. Grossman wants me in the 450 gonal 150 menopure. Yeah. Won't burn out eggs, will it? That's a good question. PCO first was 225/75 and only 6 eggs. So going from a 300 total dosing, which is the 225/75 to a 450. I've been talking more about a 400 total dosing, which at 39, even though you have a higher AMH, you're not responding as a PCOS patient, polycystic ovarian syndrome patient. So I'd say that going up a little higher is not likely going to hurt you, and a 300, 150, or even as high as 600, which is 450, 150, but you can always lower the dose, and if you trigger with Lupron only, your risk of hyperstimulation is low. For those who want to save a little bit more money on the medications, doing gonal or Follistim with low-dose HCG is another way to do it. So instead of doing 450, 150, do 600 plus 20. But quite often, we're doing even some lower doses, mini protocols. Any thoughts on the mini protocols, the lower doses, Dr. Faruqi?
It's really not a cookie cutter approach. A lot of times when we do IVF, and when we see the results, that's where we learn. And no patient comes up with her own instruction guide on how we should do IVF. So it's really a opinion that we have to formulate the first time round. And when we do our IVF, we learn from what we see. So in this case, if you're concerned about ovarian hyperstimulation because we upped your dose, I really don't think there's a big chance based on what occurred with the last IVF cycle. And a lot of times when you increase the dose, the effect is not linear. So sometimes when you increase the dose a lot, it's not a heck of a lot more effect. And so that's where the whole mini dose and high dose dilemma comes into play.
And we've been talking a lot about mini protocols over the last couple of months, which is either letrozole or Clomid combined or separate, with or without a little bit of injectables in the 200 unit range. We've been doing really well with those, and even in those that are lower AMHs, that are older, diminished ovarian function, we've been getting some good results. So a lot of it is quality over quantity. That's really an important thing that we're focusing on. And even some natural cycles. We have some patients where they just they have high FSHs and low AMHs, but they still have a regular cycle. It's certainly possible to get something out of that doing even a natural cycle.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's see. Sina Mongal, how long before stims should you be on Omnitrope for it to be beneficial? So Omnitrope is human growth hormone. There's some evidence that human growth hormone may help improve egg quality, potentially quantity. It's either in a 30, 60, 90-day priming protocol or simply used in stimulation. We've been talking about Somaderm topical and Serovital, which is another oral homeopathic human growth hormone that may be good for priming, and then use the human growth hormone or the Omnitrope in stimulation. So it's not necessary to do it for 2, 4, 6 weeks or longer, but at least 2 to 4 weeks I think is enough in our priming protocols. What are your thoughts?
There's a big cost factor here also. So the cost and side effect profile. So if we give it for too long, we're going to start getting all kinds of side effects which are not desirable, to say the least. So we try to just minimize the exposure to growth hormone for that same reason. So I think that's about what we do too. I actually like giving it just during the stimulation and just slightly before.
So I'd say in our case, the 2 to 4 weeks, we like a lot. Going longer, we've had some patients that they don't do as well with human growth hormone. So someone recently at 40 made 6 eggs and 4 to 5 blasts without it, and then the next cycle we thought, oh, let's add some human growth, maybe we'll do better, and wound up with 2 day 3s that didn't look so good. And so I think in that case the human growth hormone wasn't so good. So we got to look at it, and again, it's individual, and recognize, unfortunately, with this business, we do a cycle and we learn something from it. We'd love not to have to learn anything. I'd like to do it the one time and make it happen and be done with it. So, all right.
I just have a question. Are you using androgens?
So
like the poor people's growth hormone. I've used a lot of those too. That's 21 days before the cycle. We give topical androgen cream, and I also feel I have seen some good results with that too. What about you?
Well, we've been talking more about the topical testosterone gel for 1 to 4 weeks. So I think 2 to 3 weeks is reasonable with a little estrogen prime. And in many of those cases, we're also adding the Omnitrope or the Serovital or the Somaderm. And don't forget keto, keto, keto. It's critical. We've seen so much success. Remember, there's a vegan and vegetarian keto. It's a high fat, and it's low carb, low protein. But it's fantastic. And remember, it's 1 meal a day, 2 at the most. And my bet is we're highly allergic to something we eat in our standard American diets, whether you're a vegan, a vegetarian, a Mediterranean, a pescatarian, but we're all supplementarians for sure, and we want to be working our very best to improve what goes into this Ferrari lionesses. We got to do our very, very, very best. All right, let's see. Marionette Beal, for the wash, is Ovidrel able to be used or must it be pregnant HCG? You know, that's a good one. You could use the Ovidrel. We typically, since the Ovidrel is already pre-mixed, you're not able to use it multiple times. So it really should be the Pregnal Profaci, Novarel, or a genetic HCG. So
also, we don't know for sure, but we know for a fact that Ovidrel has a shorter half-life. So when we use something that has a very short half-life in a wash, we don't know if it's actually going to be as effective as the HCG or not. And
a couple things about the PRP, since we mentioned about a wash, the intrauterine high volume Dr. Verdialis recommendation for maybe 1 to 3 months for everyone and anyone, even the idiopathic infertility, which remember, we're idiots as doctors because we don't know what the cause is, but in fact, remember, it's always inflammation. Inflammation is key. And so the intrauterine PRP, high volume, 10 to 20 milliliters with a little catheter with a balloon that will hold it in, flush out of the tubes, may also help reduce inflammation, help the healing process, because I believe that endometriosis is just an intra-abdominal pelvic bowel disorder, all integrated together, which causes the damage to the ovaries, eggs, testicles, sperm, fallopian tubes, uterus, implantation, and everything. So it's really kind of an interesting process, how important, we reduce inflammation in this. But the PRP, HCG, Neupogen washes are all things that we found to help reduce inflammation, along with 30 days of an antibiotic, antifungal, and maybe even an antiviral, which, again, it goes against most of our concepts and ideas. But let me ask Dr. Fruki a question about diagnostic laparoscopies for unexplained infertility. What are your thoughts and ideas on that?
Generally when we do our workup for patients that just come to us and we see all our initial testing, ultrasound, sono, all this being negative, we don't jump to laparoscopy. But I've had many cases where we did everything and the patient's just not getting pregnant, and we would have expected her to get pregnant. In those instances, I've done diagnostic laparoscopies, and it's an interesting observation how many times we see endometriosis. We don't see a lot of endometriosis, because that we would have picked up with scans and this and that, but we very often see minimal endometriosis, and it makes you wonder how much effect in this particular lady this endometriosis is having. So I do think there's a high incidence of endometriosis in that age group. I think I've seen a publication that said as much as 70%.
Yeah, I think we're missing so much intra-abdominal pelvic inflammation by forgetting about a diagnostic laparoscopy in so many of us, and for women, obviously.
Yeah.
But inflammation and the diagnostic laparoscopy is critical, in my opinion. But the other option is a medical treatment. So presumed endo or don't know, we've been using Oralisa, 150 once or twice a day. I like the 200 milligrams once a day, combined with letrozole, 2.5 to 5 milligrams, as a pre-anything, IUI, IVF, intercourse. We have to, we always go and wait for adding these things on to the IVF group rather than the intercourse and IUI, and don't forget frozen embryo transfers. All of them, I think, are real critical. And I was looking at, I try to look at my questions on a Facebook, but Afua asked a question about keto and intermittent fasting messed up her cycles, and what should I do? In my opinion, you got to give it time. It will fix itself when the body is cleansed of all that inflammation. Remember, we're addicted to carbs and proteins, and remember, carbs are sugar. and our body is reacting in a fight or flight inflammatory way. It's going to fight you every way to get you eating that stuff because our bodies want it because it makes us fat. So you got to stay the course, but add more fat. Go for a light walk, light, easy weights at best. Remember, do some yoga, meditation, and prayer, and remember what you put in here. So I've seen success, but it might also be the keto you're doing isn't Kiltz's keto. And Kiltz's keto is the baby diet. Remember, bacon, eggs, butter, beef, ice cream. All right. How long before stims should you be on inotrope? We got that one. All right. Hello, Pokies, Fashion, low. Eat on Farms. I have eggs banked but turning 46, I had bad preeclampsia last pregnancy. Would it be dangerous to try again? Life has a lot of dangers. Do you want to comment on that one, Dr. Fruki?
That's a question that is asked a lot, by the way, because the preeclampsia is not a very pleasant experience. It's traumatic. I'm hoping that your child came out okay as well as you. The big thing that the question asked is, what's the chances of it coming back? Depending on how it presented itself in your previous pregnancy, most of the cases it doesn't come back unless you have some predisposing factors. If it happened very early or you have some sort of underlying condition, then your chances of it is coming back is higher. Certainly if you get pregnant, it's highly recommended that you get followed accordingly, knowing that that happened in the past. But we have a lot of patients who had that history and they get pregnant again. They're worried, we're worried, but most of the time ends up being a happy story. How about you?
Well, I agree that obviously if you do something and you have a difficult experience, we're all worried about whether we should do this thing or not because it might happen again. But obviously the benefit of doing it again is another child, and the risk, I think, is low enough. Look at a lot of the stuff we talk about, inflammation, and don't forget low-dose naltrexone. And one of the things I've been talking about is the excessive number of phytochemicals that are in the healthy foods we eat. If you just look up plant toxins, you'll realize that. I think those toxins are actually the cause of preeclampsia, infertility, inflammation, and all the other diseases, and I could go down the list. All right, so let's see. There was Anju, hello. Let's see here. Oh, let's see. Jen D. Taveras. Can I do keto with high cholesterol? All right. So interesting enough, I did pull up this book that I read a long time ago. It's called Keto Clarity. There's one called Cholesterol Clarity by Jimmy Moore. And the more and more I learn and do this, eating fat and keto is not dangerous for your health. It's healthy for your health. It turns out that fruits, vegetables, fiber, which all break down to sugar, by the way, are actually the cause of high cholesterol. But it's not the high cholesterol, it's the inflammation from the foods we eat that actually also cause high cholesterol. So we blame the cholesterol, but it's actually the sugar that comes from plants, seeds, stems, leaves, flowers, roots, and that's the craziness to the story.
And I have a lot of patients that have done the keto diet and have eventually got off their meds. Just be careful. You don't just get off your meds. You need your doctor to confirm you need to get off. But there's been a lot of patients, including my colleagues who are themselves doctors, did the keto diet and are off the statins, off blood pressure medication, diabetes medication. So I wouldn't be worried if you have high cholesterol. In fact, that would be a reason why I would think of doing it.
Yeah, and it's a crazy one. Our need for a carbohydrate is zero, by the way. And Dr. Corley also lost 40 to 50 pounds, went off his hypertension and cholesterol meds. And so it's a crazy one. And Elizabeth Marshall asked, do you need to do keto during transfer? Look, we have plenty of people that don't do keto and have a baby. So we're not here, we're just giving the list of options. We're the menu provider. You're the director and driver of the process. We're just sharing ideas that we've seen work. I call us Ferrari mechanics. And we are taking care of the most valuable, expensive, irreplaceable entities in the universe, a human, beautiful being. And when we realize that the actual information we've been given by our healthcare experts are actually clouded in misinformation, and we are unwilling to listen to an opposite view, does that sound familiar to us human beings in general? Like, if you have a different opinion, I'm not going to listen to it. That's the crazy muss, right? I know. All right. Miss Chrissy, to you.
Yeah.
You want to get that question?
I'm 33. I had a tubal ligation. Would like to try a natural or mini cycle IVF. I've had 2 full-term pregnancies, and would recommend this. Would you recommend this for women my age? It is definitely a possibility. We'd have to check your ovarian reserve. If you have, at your age, if you have a high ovarian reserve, it's definitely something that you could do. With the mini cycle IVF, we should be able to get enough ovocytes to make it happen.
Yeah, but that said, if you have regular cycles and you make a follicle and release an egg, it's still reasonable. We're here to go along the lines of what you want to do. For so long in this business, we've been scientifically been given the best answers, but they're clouded in so much preconceived ideas and beliefs that I think we don't know the right answer. But we've seen so many have success with natural cycles, with mini cycles, with standard cycles, and with high dose cycles. If one doesn't work, let's try it up and do something different. You know, right now we still offer full financing, more affordable and accessible for everyone in the world. Traveling to Canada, to upstate New York. We are working on our Atlanta facility, more likely in 2021 for retrievals and transfers. But Buffalo is what we're working with Dr. Chang. Dr. Faruqi will also be helping doing retrievals and transfers in our Buffalo.
And that will really help our Canadian patients, particularly the ones from Ontario, which is just next door.
And we are going to continue doing those who are looking for family balancing, gender selection. If you have a known genetic disorder and you're looking to screen it, we do PGD, PGS testing, PGTA testing. We're looking to the future where we're not going to need to biopsy the embryo, but simply look at the culture media in all of this is another option. But at the same time, my opinion is, remember, when you look at the soccer ball, depends where you biopsy to get a different answer. And I don't think it's accurate enough. And my belief is that they would have probably thrown me out. Some people might say we should do that now, but I believe all of us and any of us have the right to make the decisions for yourself, by the way. And that's what we're here to do, is help you make those decisions. Kenna, hello. Isabel, hello. Pimps Bugs, hello. Lots of waves. All right, started juicing to start drinking a fertile drink smoothie. What is the best fruit vegetable do you recommend to help improve egg quality? 39 years old. All right. So, you guys, adding more fruits and vegetables simply adds more of these chemicals. And there's a really great article on plant phytoestrogens, androgens, and progestins that inhibit an herbivore's reproduction. So I'm not a fan of juicing. If you're going to do a cream with an egg, and you got to be careful of the fake milks, oat milk, almond milk. They're all toxic in my opinions. So I'm not a big fan of the smoothie drinks because they're full of sugar, fiber, bacteria and yeast, and maybe other viruses that I think are part of the culprit. So I'm not a big proponent of those. If you're going to do it, make sure you cooked the carbs well to kill and disarm the phytochemicals, the phytoplant antigens, the lectins, the glycans, the glutens, the solanases, and I go down the list. It's a craziness, by the way.
Actually, human beings were never made to eat grains and grass and green stuff. We are basically, as we've mentioned, we're truly lions. We're made to eat meat and fat. It's only when we started having famine that we started looking for wheat and grains, and
We're very inventive.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we've invented cars and planes
Yeah.
and trains and IVF and all sorts of medical treatments.
Yeah, and even then, when we started eating grains, we were eating completely non-processed stuff. And now obviously, most of our foods that you can go and buy everywhere is all processed carbohydrates. This is where, irrespective of your genetics, is why we have so much obesity, so much illness all across the board.
Well, our encouragement of 3 to 6 meals a day and eating like a grazing animal is part of the problem. So intermittent feasting is what I talk about for any of us. Whether you're a vegan or vegetarian, I recommend cooking the carbs well. You know, if you're going to do those smoothies and you're a vegetarian, add the cream and butter and ghee. If you're a vegan, this is where coconut milk may come in. Much more healthy, by the way, than almond milk. Because almond milk is a ground up seed, where the coconut milk is more likely going to be the coconut water. Although we do grind up the coconut substance, the firm stuff that may be part of that. So you got to be careful that you, any of us, may be affected by that high antigens, immune stimulating chemicals in the whole part of this.
At the end of the day, we can't make a lion a gazelle.
You can't, and again, but we do have ancient beliefs in this process of being a vegan, a vegetarian, a Mediterranean, or wherever you're at. But simply by eating less frequently and adding the fat, cooking down the carbs, and limiting the variety. Hemp seeds, by the way, are probably one of the healthier, but soak them, cook them, along with adding hemp oil. And speaking of hemp oil, CBD oil, and for some reason we changed our distributor, but CBD Distillery is really the one we're going to be going back to and continuing to use, but we may have some others. So you can go online and do the CBD oil, by the way. I'm a big proponent of it, I think, but stay away from THC, alcohol, or any other drugs, by the way. I think they're not good for the human Ferrari, by the way. All right. Tab, how long after your consult do you actually move forward with meds and retrieval? Usually about a month, 2 or 3. We got to give time for our team to connect. You will be, go to our website, cmyfertility.com, download the magazines, the books. Go to Amazon, look at my Daily Intentions, The Fertile Secret. We have our new books coming out, The Fertile Feast, which talks about keto, and we're including recipes for vegans, vegetarians, standard ketos, and carnivore ketos. And, you know, the more and more I've found for myself, carnivore keto is a home run. Again, I'm going to be talking at the Carnivore Conference 2020 in Boulder in May. Excited about that and focusing on infertility. And one of the things I've found is that infertility is just another disease that are caused by the five causes of all inflammation: glucose, glycation 1, phytochemicals, plant lectins and antigens, and then fermentation of fiber in the gut, colon, bad for ovaries, eggs, sperm, embryos, and too much exercise. We're meant to be creative, but we're not meant to get on a treadmill and do all this stuff. All right, let's see. Talking about boosters. Ashley. Hey, Ashley Carter. Do you want to take that, Dr. Faruqi?
When taking boosters, how much HCG can be accounted for from being just boosters? My first beta was 17, and I have to go back tomorrow. I'm hoping I'm
not out.
Kiltz, you did both my transfers. So is the HCG the true HCG, or is it?
It's HCG 250 units a day is my recommended. Yeah. That's likely a 15 to 25 is more likely the HCG booster. This is one of the challenges with using it, and so but you got to either stay on it and repeat it, and if it doesn't go up, it's not good. Yeah. But I always say stay on it and repeat it. Stay on your drugs and repeat it 2 days later approximately, and see which way it goes. That's the best we can do. Bo Lee, morning doctor. I have 2 big fibroids and multiple small. They asked me to do myomectomy before trying IVF. I'm scared because of my age. So you can actually do an IVF retrieval with the fibroids there, and then bank some embryos. If you're difficulty getting to the ovaries, I recommend sometimes removing them ahead of time.
Yes. Yeah. First of all, it's quite the opposite when you come to fibroids. Most people come to us, and people have recommended not removing the fibroids. And when we look at the where the fibroid is placed, I tend to be more aggressive and tend to remove them. I think you're the same way. We have had many cases where the patient's coming, oh, I have a fibroid, I've seen a lot of doctors, we don't want to remove it, and we go out and remove it, and then they become pregnant. It's just too much of a coincidence. And now there's even studies actually proving that fibroids, though even the ones that don't deform the endometrial cavity, have a negative effect on infertility.
And I agree with that. And because I've taken out fibroids laparoscopically with mini laps and sometimes big laps if necessary. Yeah. And I think fibroids like endo, like scar tissue, like pain, even when you don't see anything, is inflammation. Like an abscess, removing it, removing a bad tube, removing fibroids, removing endo, may help either natural conception, may help in the stimulation process for intercourse, IUI or IVF, and may help in the implantation process. So when nothing else is working, you remove it. But to get a straight answer out of us doctors is a near impossibility. It's a craziness how we all have different opinions, which go figure.
Well, you know, I go with this general idea that if you're not getting pregnant and we're working really hard at helping you, I want everything to be perfect. And sometimes fibroids probably affect the blood flow in the endometrial cavity, cause inflammation. And I think being a little bit too conservative with fibroids is probably not the best thing.
Yeah, and I've seen so many people, they watch them grow, they watch them, not an issue, and then bingo. And I've seen so many people that find nothing on ultrasound and HSGs and blood tests, and like, well, gee, you don't need anything, you need IVF. But yet, when we go in and laparoscopically and sometimes just remove a small amount of endo, we've seen so many pregnancies or small fibroids. But the other thing I'm beginning to add on for those laparoscopies is a PRP, intrauterine intrapelvic wash. So we got to talk about it and ask about it. It's a new entity that I'm adding to all of this. It's not as easy to do if you have a laparoscopy at the hospital, but if it's at our office, yes, and we're gonna add that more and more and more. By the way, let's see. Getting endo excision done before IVF. Should I do egg retrieval before surgery? This is another Tanya Tim Flanagan, and it can go either way. If you respond well, you get embryos, you transfer, it's negative. Do the laparoscopy, then do another transfer, or bank the embryos, do your surgery, and then go back. You know, we spend a lot of money. We spend a lot of energy, emotional, physical, and financial, on fertility treatment. It's emotionally a stress and a struggle. We all feel it together, and so every little thing you can do that will help you naturally first, and or with these treatments is really, really, I think, the key to all of this. So, all right, Dr. Faruqi, let's see if we can get another question for you. Again, how's everyone doing? A shout out, blessings and love to everyone. March is National Endometriosis Awareness. I was talking to someone about autism recently and awareness of autism. And if you haven't seen the Magic Pill, which is about the keto diet and how it helps so many of us in healing our inflammation, I'm just amazed, by the way.
There's that question that we had answered earlier. Is there any, from Warrior Jess, is there any alternative to human growth hormone because of a cancer history? We talked about the androgel gel.
Androgel.
I guess that's the number one thing. Coenzyme Q10 is not very strong. DHEA is shown to have some effect, but nothing close to the androgel or the AG.
Well,
growth hormone.
You know, and I always wonder whether a 2 to 4 week use of any of these, because I really believe that cancer is caused by our standard American healthy diet, which is full of plants, and the plants are actually the predators that want to kill us. which is such an opposite, unusual mantra on my part. But the more I've done this, I've seen all my diseases, arthritis, irritable bowel, bleeding, migraines, dermatitis, psoriasis all go away. And I've seen so many people have the same experience. I don't know that I believe the HGH omnitrope. That said, maybe a Cerevital or a Somaderm. But again, you know, like anything else, we can never guarantee safety of any of these things. That's the trouble. You know, we ask your doctor, like they can guarantee anything. We cannot. So, you know, if you're experiencing these problems, and you got to look at it and measure the risks and benefits to all of this. All right, let's see here. Jen Feliciano again, 40 and had my fallopian tubes, but not my fimbrias. Have to get them removed to get IVF done. So I'm assuming they removed your fimbria, but not the rest of the tube, or maybe the middle of the tube and left the fimbria.
Fallopian tubes out, but not. So maybe a partial self-injectomy.
Yeah,
what
probably not. But you know, if there's any dilation and any inflammation in the tube, even if they're not dilated, it's a sink for inflammation, then probably yes, should be considered to remove those for sure.
Because the fluid in the tube will reflux back into the endometrial cavity and damage the embryos.
Let's see. The Fertile Yoga at See My Healing Arts in Syracuse, Meg Hanth Thomas Yoga, Thomas Yoga. Listen, we're doing yoga for fertility, Fertile Hope Yoga at Syracuse and in Rochester. We don't have them in our Albany and Buffalo offices. If you know someone at their home, but don't forget, Aaron McCullough's Fertile Hope Yoga can really bring that to your home. And so in our teaching in the fertility yoga, Megan, thank you very much of doing that, by the way. So Megan Thomas Yoga, check a look at that, by the way. God bless everyone, by the way, for the shout outs and the confidence you give all of us. But we recognize that this is the roughest, hardest road. Seek counseling. I've got my thought journal that I write in. And, you know, my Mind, Body, Smile and drkiltz.com, the Coffee with Kiltz, is my way of finding a focus. I always find that there's some mantra of faith that I find powerful for myself. Find that powerful mechanism to find some serenity in this journey. Because the more angry, sad, depressed we are, the fight or flight journey isn't so easy. The more we can find a settling and a sitting with the challenges, meditation, prayer, visualization, vision boarding, it's an amazing, by the way. Pisces, let's see.
Yeah.
Brother.
By the way, our birthday is almost the same day.
So my brother Tom is tomorrow the 2nd, Dr. Fruki is the 7th, and I'm the 12th. You know, I'm turning 64, I think turning 28. But remember, if you keep in the mind health and wellness, no matter what your chronologic age, that's the home run for all of us. So let's not forget that, right? Scared because it's high fat. Okay. Listen, the high fat, you've got to watch Carnivore Conference. You'll learn that a high-fat diet is actually the Ferrari fuel. It suppresses inflammation. It makes you feel better. But listen, ever since we've been taught a low-fat diet, all of our problems have gotten bigger and more complicated, more costly. Healthcare costs are going up. Complexity's going up. And I'm just a simple-minded man. And the more I practice this myself, it's amazing. Bacon, eggs, butter, beef, ice cream, one meal a day. Today, I put a little Instagram and Facebook note out there, except Facebook, I think. And I made a little breakfast for Fayez and myself. It was leftover steak from Mirbeau and Skinny Atlas. And it was ribeye rare with a little bit of scallops cooked in butter, and then over medium, maybe a little harder eggs. But it's It's an amazing concept that none of us can really fathom. Being obese or overweight is not the cause of disease. It's what you fill the bucket with. And our buckets are filled with compost heap material, which is fruits and vegetables, smoothies. And we have been manipulated by the plant world, which has planted the seed of idiotness. Sorry. And I know it didn't make sense to me, but you know what? If what you're doing isn't working, what I did was I didn't believe it, but I did it, and I'm like amazed by it. So it's quite amazing, by the way. All right. How's everyone doing? We're just going to zip through some more questions.
Is it normal for my doctor to prescribe me letrozole for 4 months without doing any testing on me or even checking to see if I ovulated while taking it? Sometimes we do that depending on what our project is. If someone wants to delay the treatments, have come to see us and we still want to help them, we might say, listen, if you're going to wait 4 months, why don't you try this? Most people will either respond well or maybe respond minimally. We're certainly not going to harm anyone doing it. Personally, I like to monitor and I like to watch what we're doing. And I don't know about you.
I would say that, you know, if you're infertile, whether or not you have irregular cycles, regular cycles, it's nice to know, do we have sperm? What sperm are you using? Are your tubes open? Do you have any evidence of low or high thyroid, low or high prolactin? Are there any other medical conditions going on that we can maybe advise and help with? But typically we'll do letrozole, 5 milligrams, 5 days, day 3 through 7 of a regular cycle, or empirically if you don't get periods. But we almost always recommend an ultrasound, a trigger shot, combined with intercourse IUI, combined with maybe a little bit of progestin. But, you know, so it might be normal, but it's not generally my recommendation. Someone who's been suffering from infertility.
Yeah. But I mean, like, you know, we have patients from all over. So I have a couple right now who's doing exactly that, but they're living in a remote area. There's no access to ultrasounds. We did go through the investigation because they went to the city next to where they live and got all the testing done. And presently they're doing this, and it's not cost, because otherwise they would have to travel 8 hours to get an ultrasound done. So there are many, many instances where we would actually do something like that, but it's not, if we have our facilities nearby, we would recommend doing it a little bit more,
but
like you just said.
But we have the ability to help you get to a radiologist, ultrasonographer, local fertility gynecologist. We have a lot of methodologies, but it may be empiric, where you're doing 5 days of letrozole with or without a trigger shot, or checking your ovulation predictor kits in all of this. But again, if it's not working naturally, this is where a little bit of evaluation, a little bit more focused treatment might. I mean, when you get to a fertility doctor in general, we're doing a little bit more, but I would say it is pretty normal. So I'm going to answer the yes part of that you take some letrozole for a few months, see what happens.
And 4 months is just about the right time. You don't want to do more than that.
Yeah.
If you're going to succeed, 90% of the time it'll be within that 4 months.
There was a question about keto rash, and basically, remember, your body is going to fight you. It's withdrawing. Any withdrawal to a drug, alcohol, or carbs, your body's going to do everything. You're going to get so symptomatic, it's going to make you think you need the thing you actually don't need, but you will think you do. And so, like, I need food, right? Even though we might have plenty of fat on our body, we don't need it, but we have been convinced because the universe, our brain says, there is no store open. You got to go hunt for food. And so if you don't eat what's in front of you, you're dead. So keto rash is your body releasing the toxins, trying to manipulate you in a way. Just think and imagine how when we are given some drug and get an allergic reaction and get a rash, I mean, it's the same thing. And sometimes my bet is we're still taking something in our body that is not good for us. Gender selection, want a girl, Nikki, we can do that for you. Let's see. Shub 230, regular cycles, retrieved 6 eggs on last retrieval, but it failed. I'm currently on LDN HGH. Ovasitol and preconception recommendations on it if this, I think this will work this time. I never know what's going to work or not work, but doing something with a positive attitude and changing what you're doing is always a good way. As National Endometriosis Month, don't forget laparoscopy, hysteroscopy, D&C, course of antibiotic, Ovavite, Ovasitol, the omega-3 fatty acids, low-dose naltrexone, Omnitrope, or Alyssa or Lupron and Letrozole. And I know I've listed a lot, and I've got my everything list that I throw out to everyone. If what you're doing isn't working, be open to do or try something different, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and that includes the keto diet too, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm always, there are lots of different keto magazines, all right? Like these tomatoes actually may be anti-reproductive. Don't use them, in my opinion. No, it's the little things you think like pepper, red peppers, spices. Maybe they're not so good for your reproductive body, all right? And Suzanne Ryan, Keto Karma, always looking at other recipes. But, everyone likes to throw on some green stuff. I say eliminate the green stuff. You might be amazed how those little things change everything, by the way. By the way, for fresh versus frozen. Any comments on that, Dr. Fruki?
I don't know if we have the same opinion on that one, but I definitely prefer frozen, depending on how we got the embryos, of course. If we stimulate the cycle with a high dose of gonadotropins, our estrogen levels are multiples of what is natural in a cycle when a baby is conceived. And yes, we will get more eggs, yes, we will get more embryos, but it's a two-edged sword. And the flip side is we're messing with the endometrial receptivity. So we're going to be putting our best embryos in the worst conditions. I'd rather freeze them and come back and do it.
But there are plenty of people that come to us for a fresh transfer, and the data isn't that accurate. And so as long as your progesterone is under 2 to 2.5 at trigger, your estrogen level is under 3 to 4,000, and you have plenty of embryos, then doing a fresh transfer is up to you. We support it. We've had plenty of pregnancies and deliveries, by the way.
It's actually saying the same thing because at the end of the day, Dr. Kiltz just verified that those conditions that were prevailing the ones I was talking about were not present, and then we can transfer these embryos.
Right, but technically you can transfer your embryo anytime you like. It's your embryo, not ours. So I think we all need to be careful when we tell you what you can and cannot do. That is not true. We give our best recommendation for your cycle, your embryos, and helping you make that decision. So I think that's one of the things that we at CMY Fertility are different, because ultimately we work for you. We're a consultant, not a patriarchal relationship, which I think is part of the problem with modern Western medicine overall.
Well, it's a very good point you just mentioned. When we were medical students, we were taught that we are the captain of the ship, and the patients and whoever comes to see us pretty much have to listen to us. As we've practiced more and more, we just realized the only way we're going to succeed helping people is to become a team. And no more than 1/3 if there is a couple, our participation. We're willing to share our knowledge, but at the end of the day, it's a consensus that we need to get with our patients.
All right, Elizabeth Marshall, Shauna Milberg, hello. Alicia Deal, hello to you. Brandy Champagne asked a question: stomach cramps, sign of inflammation or endometriosis? All of it. Intra-abdominal pelvic cramps, chronic diarrhea, constipation are all evidence of inflammation. I think it all stems from the bowels, what we fill the colon with. The colon is filled with a tremendous amount of plant material, bacteria, yeast, and fiber, phytochemicals. In that fermentation, it makes heat, gas, alcohol, aldehyde, and methane. It's deadly for us, I believe. The leading cause of all disease is a high plant-based diet and a low-fat diet. Add fat, reduce plants, eat less frequently, it'll help. But this is where changing your diet, low-dose naltrexone, CBD oil, Kiltz is keto, one meal a day, at night, add the fat, reduce the carbs, cook them well, and get off the treadmill. And, again, it's a crazy concept, but I will bet $1 billion on it that it really, really, really works tremendously.
Well, there's just too many people who have tried it and have come back to us and have told us how well it works. I can even say personally, it has helped me.
Well, we've been talking about getting this guy on Kiltz's keto, and he's already down some pounds and feeling better. And I know it didn't make sense to me either. A Mediterranean descent, my grandparents all from Italy. And I grew up with a dad who loved to cook, a mother loved to cook. I loved watching Julia Childs and cooking, and I loved eating everything. I love fruits and vegetables. But for years, from a little kid, I had bowel problems, migraines, arthritis, and could anyone give me an answer? No way. All right. Diagnose and treat endometriosis, itis, not osis. Can it be the cause of infertility? Lynn Murphy. How do you diagnose and treat endometritis, not endometriosis?
That's a tough question, but probably by endometrial biopsy, the big problem with that is it's not always evident on endometrial biopsy that there is endometritis, which is an inflammation of the endometrial tissue. We have, I don't know about you, but we have special coloration that we can do on the biopsy. It's called CD138. It looks at plasma cells. These are cells that occur when there's an inflammation, so that's indirect evidence. Now there's some tests. I don't know if you're doing them. It's the ERA test where they're looking for the DNA of the bacteria in the endometrium. And when we find that bacteria, then it's indicative of an endometritis. So we're getting a little bit more sophisticated. But it all comes down to the fact that we're recognizing inflammation or infection, which is pretty much the same end result, is a big player in IVF failures. And this is where it's all going.
And I think that this is a very good question. I think endometritis, endometriosis are linked. Chronic inflammation, bacteria, yeast, and viruses are all linked to this. A hysteroscopy, DNC, a good clean out, a 2 to 4 week course of antibiotic, antiviral, antifungal, I think are helpful. We've been doing a lot of either Doxy, Z-Pak, or Levaquin low dose for 30 days, the Valtrex for 30 days, and the Diflucan. There's another daily oral antifungal plus a keto. Kiltz's keto, baby diet, bam, amazing. And the PRP, again, another one that's helpful. But it's a hard one because if we continue eating the same diet, which is a high plant-based fiber, bacteria, yeast, and viruses, that's where it is. I mean, so more aggressive treatment, 30 days. Remember, Lyme disease and so many of these infectious diseases are really not easy to get rid of. And so, the bugs are everywhere. They're microscopic. I mean, you can't get away from them. We're seeing the current coronavirus, flu viruses, the common cold. I think, again, we want to eat them. They want to eat us. We're just all cohabitating together. We're postponing our childbearing to our late 20s, our 30s, and even into our 40s and beyond. We now have an infinite amount of damage to our reproductive organs, which are immensely sensitive. So it's not as easy to diagnose, but if we can be a little bit more aggressive in that, we can do better. This is where IVIG, Humira, LIT therapy even may come into play in all of this. We use a lot of IVIG, Neupogen, Plaquenil, Prograf, and looking at our level 4 immune protocol. But it's, in my opinion, you got to throw in the antibiotics. And the either in Cyprus or in Greece, they were doing the menstrual extraction cultures, which is another way of looking for silent chlamydia, silent endo, silent inflammation, by the way. So that was a good question. It's all inflammation, itis. Endometriosis is probably just another endometritis that maybe we're missing by treating a little more aggressively. Hi there, does a high Th1, Th2 ratio mean there will be implantation issues? What can be done? I've had stage and 2 endo removed, Doxa. I don't know that I can explain the levels as critical as we'd all like to have them because it's a little bit of a mystery, but definitely the NKs, Th1, Th2 out of sync, ESR, high SED rates are all measurements of inflammation. There isn't a diagnostic criteria that will tell us you need IVIG, you need Neupogen, you need prednisone high dose, you need Lovenox. So we don't know what these mean as much. And I know Dr. Kwok Kim is excellent. Dr. Beer's practice is excellent. There's someone else in the Midwest, in Michigan area, that I think more and more our patients are looking towards. And we work with all of them if that's what you choose. So we're here to help.
I also, first of all, immunity has a lot to do with IVF and pregnancy. I think our future in IVF is going to be heading towards recognizing the impact of our immune system and the inflammation. It's probably why we are failing so many embryo transfers of even normal embryos. The big problem that I see is that we really don't have a specific test to measure that. So we try to measure collateral things to see, okay, listen, you have high antibodies, you have high thyroid antibodies, you have high anti-nuclear antibodies. It's got nothing to do with actual. And then we say, okay, if you got that going, that means there is an immune dysfunction. And then we start using the medication like intralipid and Prograf and things like that.
Although the problem is that our general professional organizations don't recognize inflammation as a cause of infertility, which I think is absolutely the cause. And
it's only a question of time.
But the time we don't. You don't have time, but I can just tell you it is like we're waiting for some scientific miracle when it's already obvious that cancer, heart disease, brain disorders, ALS, MS, and I'll go down the list, is all caused by inflammation. That said look at ANA, ACA, lupus anticoagulant, look at NK cells, look at anti-ovarian, anti-thyroid antibodies. Look at these things that maybe will give your rheumatologist the ability to say you need IVIG, you need Humira. But the problem is that it's just not thought of in our current environment that it's an issue, which I believe it is the issue. And so I will stand on my reputation, as crazy as I am some days, and whatever that reputation is, I don't know, but inflammation is the cause, and our standard American healthy diet is the cause, and a low-fat diet is the cause, too much exercise is the cause, and I've seen so much success by simply turning it around and doing opposite that any of us have ever been taught. That's the amazing part. All right. Can you take, Val, acyclovir with intralipids and tacrolimus and after transfer? I think
yes.
The antiviral, the tacrolimus, the Prograf, and the intralipids, and don't forget, eat the fat, eat the fat, eat the fat, and you must love your fat, all right? You must look in the mirror, no matter your size, shape, color, or anything, love it, because that is you. That's the entity we call God within all of us. When you love that thing called you can then better look at everyone else with love. And the real trick to this universe acceptance is to love. And if you haven't read Don Miguel's The Four Agreements or The Mastery of Love, you must do that. Each and every day, you must see love in yourself and everyone around you. That's part of the trick of health and wellness. When no matter what's happening to your body, you must see within the mind the dream. That's where the miracle comes for all of us, by the way. Maybe one more quick, where Canadian, can you explain how it would work to monitor at a Montreal clinic, and if we need to go to the U.S. clinics?
Well, we have a clinic in Montreal, Genesis. It's in
Genesis CNY Fertility.
Yes.
We got the CNY Fertility sign there, but we're going to be working both in Montreal. And so Dr. Faruqi, if you connect with him through either our website or the Genesis website, we'll get you linked and moving forward, by the way. So, we're here to work globally. We see people from all around the globe because we're all citizens of this earth working together to live a better life, a more sustainable and helping, but it must start individually with each and every one of us.
Also, the two of us, there's people that call us from Africa. The other day we had a patient from
We got
Madagascar.
8 seconds. All right, we want to say goodbye. Dr.
Okay.
Faruqi and Dr. Kiltz, God bless to everyone. See you next week.
Bye-bye.